Whenever Titanfall 2 is brought up in conversation, I get really excited because in my opinion, it's easily one of the biggest love letters to shooter fans. Very rarely does a shooter come out without an ounce of cynicism or sleaze. After the first game's successful concept yet flawed execution, it was easy to assume that the sequel would just kind of phone in a campaign to make the yelling stop, and then double dip on some bad business practices that were beginning to show their ugly heads in the gaming scene. When the game came out, it was sandwiched between two very important shooters. The most controversial Call of Duty game, which marked peak gamer frustration with the endless stream of enhanced mobility futuristic shooters, and the first AAA World War I themed shooter that acted as a safe haven from the exhausting focus on futuristic enhanced mobility games. It's funny to think that Titanfall 1 was essentially the bugle that sounded the incoming wave of enhanced mobility shooters, only for the sequel to be releasing alongside the game that signaled the end of this wave. Titanfall 2, 2 years later, is still one of the most important games to me. We all have those games that are important to us when we were younger, right? Games that make you feel a certain way that simply can't be replicated now that you're an adult. Games that you remember playing on a Friday night after school, with the lights off, the blue glow of the TV illuminating yourself as you wrap up in a blanket and sit cross-legged in front of the TV on the floor, eyes wide with imagination, wonder, and excitement. Titanfall 2 is the first game in my adult life to give me that sense of childlike wonderment. Not only is the multiplayer fantastic, its campaign is so good, it's still a talking point when other big AAA shooters release with poor campaigns. Titanfall 2 was a game so confident in itself, so warm and inviting, so made with love and passion that it is a classic in my books. Years down the line, as I grow older, when I look back at important games in my life, Sonic Adventure 2, StarCraft, Mario 64, Halo 3, etc., etc., Titanfall 2 will be among those games. It did something I didn't think possible. It made me feel like a kid again, playing it.
Wind, 3 knots, heading 274. Range, 95 meters. Projectile mass, 89 kilograms. Trust me.
I think I'm going to need some new underpants.
Copy that. Noted for the next supply drop.
Titanfall 2's campaign isn't just clever in its design, it's clever in its goals as a narrative. While predictable, the point of the story wasn't to have you confused on where this was all going. In fact, the game is quite comfortable with you knowing what tricks it has up its sleeve in terms of the story. From the moment it starts, you probably know how the game's going to end, and the game seems completely fine with that. It's more interested in letting you be the hero of this story. It just wants you to have a good time. The campaign begins with you getting a taste of the life of a pilot, essentially Titanfall's version of Spartans from Halo. These soldiers are unparalleled in combat. They move faster than lightning with the help of their intense training and ability to turn the entire world into their personal jungle gym. But the special nature of the pilot doesn't just come from their individual strengths. It's that seeing a pilot means that the pilot's Titan is close by. Massive industrial mining machines that are turned into sentient walking war machines, bonded to pilots. One cannot exist without the other. They have a friendship and a bond so deep that it literally is etched into the chemical balance of the pilot's brain and the core programming of the Titan. After a botched landing and ground assault, you, a rifleman, witness the death of a pilot up close. With no other choice, control of the Titan is given to you, schlubby Jack Cooper, just a simple rifleman. And thus begins a campaign that has you form the closest bond with a character I've seen in a shooter in quite some time, and eventually become the superhero yourself. What's really interesting about the campaign is that while the story seems completely comfortable and okay with you being able to guess where this is all going, it does provide twists in different ways. I'm not exaggerating when I say each level in this game is memorable and unique. There's a reason you probably notice video reviews trying to hide certain levels or warn about level spoilers. The game constantly has you excited about what the next level's gimmick might be, and the game constantly knows how to outdo its previous level in terms of concepts, and just create fun ideas for gameplay. In order to make sure the levels are varied and different, Titanfall 2 introduces new sandboxy systems or mechanics that are specific to certain levels. One level is a platforming jungle gym in a factory where timing and following the production line is key. Another level has you using time travel, where you solve puzzles and traversal by jumping into the past and present. I can go on, but this game didn't need this level of care and love in its campaign. It could have easily just phoned it in as a checklist. Yes, now we have a campaign, shut up. Yet it got that love and attention anyways. The fact Respawn went the extra mile and put so much love and care into this campaign shows their love for the Titanfall universe, and that they wanted to show the player this universe. They're excited to have you here, living it, breathing it. They want to show you it all. The levels are creative and massive to accommodate the lumbering chassis of your Titan, but that size just means that there's way more room to get creative with the wall running and mobility, which probably actually should get me to my next point. Titanfall 2's gameplay is very interesting. While on the surface it appears to just be Call of Duty with jetpacks and wall running, its philosophies for how the player interacts with the environment and moves around is actually a lot closer to shooters of old, such as Quake. In modern shooters, there's usually a separation between movement and engagement. Yes, you sprint to the engagement points, but once the fighting starts, you slow way down, because now it's up to whoever aimed down the sights first and now can control their weapon's recoil the best. Inaccurate hipfire means you have to aim down the sights a lot, which slows down your movement speed, thus putting the skill more on the player's ability to have superior positioning than their enemy. Titanfall 2 may have the same tired tropes from shooters, such as aiming down the sights, sprint, etc., but it actually gives the players tools to make their playstyle more than just positioning. Something more mobile and reactionary, like Quake. One of the best ways to play, in my opinion, is to turn auto sprint on and give your weapons the ability to fire while sprinting. Combine that with the grappling hook or stimpaks and you're basically constantly moving. Some firefights take place during chase, having the enemies make use of slide hopping so that they can keep their momentum going forward as they run away from you, but now they can turn around and fire at you as they're moving forward. In fact, slide hopping is one of the many mobility tricks players have learned in Titanfall 2. I'm not sure if it's due to Titanfall 2 running on the source engine, or if it's intentional, but the game has a lot of weird tricks that players can pull off to gain unbelievable amounts of speed and momentum. The enhanced mobility trend may have been strong, with games such as Black Ops 3 blatantly ripping off Titanfall. But none of those games seem to understand Titanfall wasn't great just because it had a jetpack and let you run on certain walls over obligatory bottomless pits. It was about the momentum and the speed you could get from chaining abilities together in seamless and smooth ways. I own both the Xbox One and PC copies of the game, so it's interesting to see how the different ecosystems adapted to Titanfall's gameplay. On the Xbox One, I found that not all, but a majority of players will probably be pressing the A button to jump, and this requires them taking their thumb off of the right stick so that they can jump. Because of this, not a lot of fights happen while in the air, because chances are players are compromised when they press that jump button for a second. So a lot of the fights are more about positioning, kind of like traditional shooters, just with a splash of that Quakeness in there. It's pretty fun, actually. Well, on the PC, because players can look around with their mouse and just use spacebar to jump, or whatever they bind the jump button to, most engagements take place while the players are on the move or in the air or doing whatever. It's all about being able to keep that player in the center of the screen while you are frantically bouncing off of walls around the place. It's crazy. I play PC when I want something a bit more competitive, like an old school shooter where players are bunny hopping and rocket jumping around the map and firing and dogfighting in the air. Well, the Xbox version I retreat to when I want a refreshing change of pace and something a bit more chill and laid back. But how did the Titans fit into all this? When John Dudebro gets mad at the idea of Titans instead of it just being pilot versus pilot, I don't think John Dudebro understands what the importance of the Titans is to Titanfall's gameplay. In pilot versus pilot matches, it's very easy to get steamrolled by the better players. There's not really much room for coming back. It's just shooting at everybody until the scoreboard says the match is done. But when you're actually playing something like Attrition, having the AI moving around, and then seeing the Titans dropping, the flow of the match is completely thrown out of whack. Now it has both groups having to reorganize and adapt to the changing battlefield. Bunny hoppers and people who are just pub stomping are going to find it a lot harder to fly around the map racking up kills because of the patrolling Titans that are now locking down parts of the map. This forces them to play a bit more conservatively and focus more on not being out in the open. Something I found quite smart about Titanfall 2 is how it corrected an issue that the first game had. In Titanfall 1, there were only 3 Titans. A skinny but fast one, a middle-of-the-road one, and a slow beefy one. That was it, and because of that, Titan combat tended to always end the same way because of the lack of diversity. In Titanfall 2, that rock-paper-scissors approach has been cut out, and now there's a lot more Titans. All of them with their own personality, skills, and abilities. My personal favorite is the Ronin class Titan. It wields a comically large sword, a gigantic industrial shotgun, and has abilities that promote close-quarter engagements and closing the gap quickly. It's obviously stupid on my part because my Titan is constantly getting destroyed because it's all about getting quick. But by attaching a module to my Titan that allows for nuclear detonations, my lack of health becomes a strategy. Sometimes I want my Titan to get low on health so that I can tactically use it as a massive mobile bomb. Do I want to get some kills? Or do I want the threat of a nuclear detonation to force back enemies who are crowding on an objective? I'll position my exploding Ronin in such a way that it funnels retreating Titans down a specific street where a friendly Scorch can then cut them off and catch them by surprise. This is the kind of stuff I love about the combat and the gameplay. It's crazy and fast and it looks insane when you're watching it, but under the hood, in your brain, in the back of your mind, there's a surprising amount of strategic thinking that goes into this game. And it's amazing that it's combined with this very reactionary style of gameplay. Titanfall 2's customization is not without its flaws. It's quite safe and could maybe be a bit more ambitious in ways that it was implemented, but it's an incredibly visual game that's only strengthened by the fact that the game has no loot boxes. You receive crazy skins and emblems by choosing factions to fight for or by completing challenges. By doing good work under the thumb of different factions, they supply you with gifts that you can open up from the main menu. Because of the climate of the game and how competitive it is, and the challenges that go into certain visual unlocks, when you see a pilot in a crazy colored bodysuit or see a Titan with a ridiculous paint job, you know what that pilot had to go through to get that paint job. Because you yourself are currently trying to get it. The game encourages this chase to get unlocks in the same way that Modern Warfare 2 did back in the day, which probably should come as no surprise, seeing as Respawn is made up of roughly the majority of those who did work on Modern Warfare 1 and 2. The love and passion for the player base can also be seen in how the matchmaking is arranged. Instead of playlists, you get to pick and choose what goes into your matchmaking algorithm. You essentially get to create your own playlist for matchmaking, and it finds the games that you selected. So not only are you customizing your characters, you're customizing how the online works as well. There's a reason Titanfall 2 barely has any objection when put on lists of the best games of this decade. There's a reason its player base still plays the game years after release. There's a reason this game is loved and recommended by gamers to other gamers. It's easy to get cynical about the state of modern gaming, but when you have games like Titanfall 2 that exist to give you a good time and goes out of its way personally to make sure everything you're doing is fun and not wasting your time, it reminds us of why we love video games. I love Titanfall 2, and in replaying the work of art that is its campaign, I had to make this love letter to a fantastic shooter and one of my favorite games of all time. When the credits were rolling after this last playthrough, I read those names, and I hoped that the people on those credits, wherever they are now in the industry, still at Respawn or at other game companies now, I hope that they know deep down in their hearts that they contributed to a beautiful shooter that has now left a legacy in many gamers' hearts. Titanfall 2 is a game I cannot recommend enough, and you can actually find it dirt cheap now at stores or online. If not for the multiplayer, then maybe the excellent Frontier Defense Horde mode, or the excellent campaign. What do you guys think of Titanfall 2? Let me know in the comments section, and remember, share the video around. It really helps, seeing as YouTube's screwing over some of us YouTubers. But guys, I want to hear what you have to say, and I'll see you on the next video.